Good evening, everyone. This is Michael, and welcoming you to our meditation revolving around the soul of nations. I'm substituting this evening for Tuya, and we'll see. Maybe she'll be back by tomorrow. Well, the Destiny of the Nations, a little book written in the years that the World War II was closing and following, with far fewer nations at that time, and many have since emerged. The idea here is that the political work of humanity is extremely important, says the Tibetan, because it conditions so many people. Just a moment here, I'm going to adjust something. And I think we've seen that during these last few years of the forerunner, from 1965 to 2025, politically and socially, there are many questions which remain to be answered and great decisions to be made as humanity looks in two directions. One towards the soul and a very positive future of transformation during the Aquarian Age, and the other back towards the bad old ways which simply had personality values at their heart. Of course, some nations are new, excuse me, and they have to be expected to pass through the personality stage. But there are many nations who are reverting to some more limited and selfish means of expression. And when you think that the United States, for instance, and the United Kingdom and the Russia Federation and so forth are going to be very important in conditioning the future of humanity, and you see the tendency towards reversion, well, it's a serious matter. And we have to work as not only citizens of the world, global citizens, but as esoteric world citizens, knowing some internal methods whereby through the right kind of meditation we can positively influence the outcomes. And the counterforce is at work, the forces of selfishness and materialism, the forces of obstruction, hoping to block humanity's progress wherever it is possible. And here's an instance in which DK would say they are fighting to the last ditch to maintain at least a status quo of selfishness, where we hope to be moving into the possibility of selflessness. I want to read a little bit from the Destiny of the Nations. And all I have to do is get my, there we go, okay. And it tells us here, let's see, what have we been reading? We don't necessarily read every week, but we often do read. And it's a wonderful little book. And he's telling us how we can learn how to respond to the higher energies, even during chaotic times. All of this it's a rather slow development. That's what we looked at before, but now it has to be faster. And there are incoming rays. We've been discussing the 6th and 7th rays, and interesting that many of the other rays will get along reasonably well with what's called the 7th ray monad during the age of Aquarius, but not the 6th ray. These two are really at odds, even though in the lives of many they are brought together so that people can get used to the idea of idealism accompanied by practicality. In the 6th ray age, there's been much idealism and very little practicality to help the divine archetype really manifest on the physical plane. But now that has to change. So we're pretty much here on page 32, 33, and I just want to read a little here. At this time, the whole world is embroiled in the chaos and the turmoil incident upon the clashing of the forces of the 6th and 7th rays. Basically, you know, what we have in a way is Neptune and Uranus in opposition, 6th ray Neptune, 7th ray Uranus, but they are meant really to complement each other. Ultimately, it's 2nd ray Neptune and 1st ray Uranus if we look at the monadic rays of both, and the 1st and 2nd ray are really meant to work together. As one ray passes out and another comes into manifestation, and their impact upon the earth and upon all the forms in all the kingdoms, note, of nature has reached the point where the two influences are equalized, then a definite point of crisis is reached. Now, I think we may have, since this book was written maybe 70 years ago, we may have reached that point of crisis, and let's see whether the tipping has occurred in relation to the 7th ray. Oh, well, it even says, this is what has occurred today. And humanity, subjected to two types of or forms of energy, is thrown off center, and hence the intense difficulty and tension of the present world period. Always these times of transition are very upsetting, but they are also opportunities if we can realize them as such, and particularly as disciples work on the correct side of evolution and not be reactionary. I mean, it's possible even for disciples and students of esotericism to look backwards and be reactionary, unfortunately. The cause of this is not only the impact of the two types of energy beating upon the forms of life with equal force. Remember, according to the nature of the form and its quality, so will be the impact of the so will be the effect of the impacting energies, but also that the energy of humanity itself, which is a combination of the 4th and 5th rays. Note that, please, because what we're dealing with there is the 4th ray soul and the 5th ray personality of humanity. That will change later into a 2nd ray soul, but for now we'd be doing very well to bring the 4th ray of humanity forward. The cause of this is not only the impact of the two types of energy beating upon the forms of life with equal force, and maybe you feel that in your own nature perhaps, but also the energy of humanity itself, which is a combination of the fourth and fifth rays, is swept into the conflict. So that we see how complex this may be. To this also must also be added the energy of the animal kingdom, again a combination of the energies of the third, fifth, and sixth rays. This is very revelatory, because we're learning how the animals are being introduced to the idea of knowledge and self-consciousness, and they certainly have devotion, and they have much activity on the third ray. So to all of this, rays 6, 7, 4, 5 are added the animal energy of third, fifth, and sixth rays, for this governs the animal or physical form of every human being. So they share that, animals and human beings, and on the activity side of the third ray. You have therefore a meeting of many conflicting forces, and the world Arjuna, you know, the one who must decide, the warrior who must decide, is faced with a stupendous battle, one that is recurrent and cyclic, but which will, in this particular era, prove a decisive and determining factor in the age-old conflict between material domination and spiritual control. Well, that's the idea. We're working for spiritual control now and for millions of years, except for brief periods of flowering here and there under special conditions of cultivation. It has been material domination. The forces playing upon the planet at this time are of supreme importance. So we're looking now at extraplanetary forces. If you will bear in mind that the sixth ray works through and controls the solar plexus, being closely related to the astral plane, the sixth level of awareness, and that the seventh ray controls the sacral center, you will see why there is so much emotion, so much idealism, and so much desire mixed up in the connection with the world conflict, which is inevitable at the time of the cyclic change of rays. So much desire mixed up in connection with the world conflict, and why also, apart from the storms in the political arena and the religious field, that sex and its various problems has reached a point of interest in the human consciousness where a solution of these difficulties, a fresh understanding of the underlying implications, and a frank dealing with the situation is inevitable and immediate. We see this, really even now attempting to be worked out, and some of the solutions are, I think unnatural and very permissive, and we'll see whether they are tolerated. We know from the ancient story of Sodom and Gomorrah that they were not tolerated for too long, given the powers that be and the destruction which supervened. Yes, humanity will attempt to solve those problems under Libra, and disciples will go further under Scorpio. So 4 problems will be solved in the next 2 centuries. So this is promising. 1, the problem of territorial possessions, which is the group correspondence within the family of nations to the materiality of the individual. You know, we can't always be greedily grasping for everything we can get, regardless of what happens to the other nation. You see other nations whose underprivileged groups are in the depths of poverty. It cannot be tolerated. Number two, the problem of sex, which will involve a truer understanding of the law of attraction and will begin to relate soul and personality in the minds of the people. Number three, the problem of death. Now, there's a lot of solution, isn't it? And already almost 100 years has passed. So, you know, maybe during the next 130 years, these things are going to be brought to solution. Amazing thought. The problem of death, which is in reality the problem of the relation between the subjective and the objective, between the tangible and the intangible, between life and form. This problem will be solved in the realm of psychology by scientific recognition of the true nature of the individual or soul and of the persona. And he did also talk about seed group number, let's see here. Whoop, that's not what I'm wanting. Here it is. So it's seed group number 7, scientists. He said that the scientists in this seed group would be working on reincarnation and would be essentially proving not only survival, which would be something significant, but reincarnation as well, which would change our entire attitude towards how we live and how we treat each other. Then lastly here, what he considers to be an important problem, the problem of the Jews, which is symbolically the problem of humanity as a whole. He always links the Jewish problem, as he calls it, with the problem of humanity, and I just underlie that. This is in a process of solution. It is today, for the first time, definitely a humanitarian problem, and one which is closely tied up with the fourth kingdom in nature, because that kingdom is the meeting place of the three divine aspects. And I must say that the Jewish group has a very deep fourth ray within it, probably because in their more pure form they are the nomads who wandered across the bridge from the previous solar system to the present one, and that bridge was constructed on the fourth ray. So it wouldn't surprise me that the Jewish group has the fourth ray monad as a whole. It does have the first ray, a powerful soul of Judea, and the third ray personality. Those three rays. The Jew, with his emphasis upon his position as one of the chosen people, of course he's not really alone in this, as we have seen, has stood symbolically throughout the centuries as the representative of the wandering, incarnating soul. But the Jewish people have never recognized the symbolic, let's see here, symbolic to which their race was entrusted. And they have taken to themselves the glory and the honor of the elect, perhaps less so. The Jew made this mistake, and as an Oriental race, the Jews have failed to hold before the Orient the divine nature of mankind as a whole, for all are equally divine and all are the Lord's. We have to learn what is the interior man and not identify only with the outer racial form. Calvin and all who followed his lead made the same mistake, and instead of holding before the people of the Occident the realization that those who recognized their essential divinity did so symbolically on behalf of on behalf of all the developing incarnate sons of God, they regarding themselves as the chosen people, and all who did not think as they did are regarded as lost. Well, we have a real problem there. It's the problem of the concrete mind and its limitations, and I think I once did the horoscope of John Calvin, a very logical man with a very strong, I think, fifth-ray mind, though otherwise Cancer and Pisces, emotionally attuned signs. When the Jew and the narrow-minded religious devotees recognize their identity with all other people and express this identity through right relationship, we shall see a very different world. And I think let's let's indicate that the world problem is essentially, now this is a good one here, the world problem is essentially a religious problem. And behind all strife in every department of world thought today is to be found the religious element. Well, people are insecure, and they note their apparent evanescence, their rapid passing into non-being, and the fear of annihilation is with them. Problem, and we're going to hope that this can be solved, as he says, well, now it's within the next 150 years or so. I think that's enough for now, and Tui and I will continue with this reading as we go. We're, I think, more than halfway through this wonderful little book, and yeah. So I just want to make this clear for myself and all. So this is the end of reading, and on the 16th of November, and beginning of reading on the 23rd November 2019. All right, well, the Tibetan's insight is remarkable, and he's been associated with mostly with the Far East, but to a significant extent with Europe and the unfolding Western civilization, and he has words of wisdom for us. So hopefully we can attend to those and really understand. Now, let's go back here. Now, those were his words, okay? And we'll enter a little bit of our meditation here. Absorbing the light of the soul and driving out all fear so that we can live a more expansive life. Because we must not allow ourselves to be cribbed, cabined, and confined the way so many religious zealots are, with the concrete mind reinforced by their ardent emotions. In other words, a fanatical concrete setup. We need the wide consciousness of the soul. And we need to help to dissipate those clouds that you see. Are we truly esoteric citizens of the world? Think about it. It means we have some idea about what's really happening behind the scenes as regards human and planetary evolution. And we know that the great majority of humanity just doesn't see reality. So with that beam of light coming from our forehead, we learn how to dissipate the clouds of glamour. And we also learn how to stop misinterpreting with the lower mind the higher energies which may impact us. And we also learn how to live a more organized seventh ray life, because that's the coming ray, avoiding the chaos which Maya induces. So we're really working upon, every one of us, sacredizing, making sacred our little non-sacred planet. Our key? The Christ is. He is a real Son of God, the most advanced of all the earth humanity. He works, lives, expresses through this planet. He's a seventh degree initiate, becoming so, as is the Buddha. You can almost see into the future that when they tread, as they probably will at some point, the path of the solar logoi, there'll be one of those stellar doubles. Interestingly, there are more of the double stars that have solar systems than there are single stars, but that's far ahead. We express right now our intention to be of service to the Christ. And we say together, we have gathered in your name, Lord Maitreya, be with us. So the Christ is the great spirit of relationship. And we don't know how he does it, but he says that wherever two or more are gathered in my name, there am I. So the spirit of loving group consciousness is what we have to cultivate, and there and then will be the presence of the great Lord, the head of the hierarchy. It's very important for us to know what we want for this planet so that we can work in terms of the divine plan. And this is the mantram, and it requires faith and belief if it is to work. This is the mantram that tells us how even great things can be done on this planet under the supervision of the Spirit of the Christ. He for whom the whole world waits has said that whatsoever shall be asked in his name, and with faith in the response, will see it accomplished. So for a moment, ask yourself, what is it? Prioritize. What is it that you want to ask in His name, and with faith in the response, so that it may be accomplished? Ponder on this now. There are so many things which have to be accomplished, but there are some that are very worthy. And since a great theme of Shambhala at this time is right human relations, I think we should always think of the importance that a mutually supportive attitude between human beings on this planet for the benefit of each and all is a high priority. Do we think about the planetary center under which we work? According to pretty much to where we live, the more advanced cities at this time, not necessarily inwardly more advanced, but New York, London, Geneva. Geneva is very inwardly advanced according to the second ray. It's the only second ray center, though there are 3 centers on the first ray and 1 on the 6th. London, Darjeeling, Tokyo on the first ray. And they have to be developed, especially Darjeeling and Tokyo. Perhaps Darjeeling is the most esoteric of the centers, sometimes known as Maurya's town. Think for a moment of how your particular center influences your esoteric world citizenship. Each one of us will be working in that way, under one of those centers particularly. And let us remember here the soul rays and mottos, and also the personality rays of these various important nations. At least they are nations with a long history or quite a bit of importance at the present time. India, first ray soul and fourth ray personality. I hide the light. China, first ray soul, third ray personality. I indicate the way. Germany, fourth ray soul, first ray personality. I preserve. France, fifth ray soul, third ray personality. I release the light. The light of the soul to be discovered scientifically in France. Great Britain and maybe, to a certain extent, Northern Ireland too, the UK, but Ireland may be included in another category. Second ray soul. First ray personality, I serve the justice of law. And Italy, sixth ray soul, fourth ray personality, I carve the paths. United States, second ray soul, sixth ray personality, the same rays we're told as the Christ, I light the way. Russia, the only seventh ray soul we're given, seventh ray soul, sixth ray personality, I link two ways. Austria, fourth ray soul, just like Germany, only fifth ray personality. Austria, the home of great musicians, and Germany too. I serve the lighted way for Austria. Spain, sixth ray soul, just like Italy, only seventh ray personality. I disperse the clouds. Sounds a lot like being rid of glamour and Maya. And Brazil, another fourth ray soul with Austria and Germany, and the second ray personality, I hide the seed. Now I won't go through all of these, but you can see that wherever you live, it may be well covered in the previous list of nations. And here the astrology is given. But not the rays. That you'll have to figure out until DK gives them to us. Perhaps your nation is here, and here even the nations that were mentioned just above, those nations have their astrology given. There's not too much. I can't quite maybe fit it all on the same page. Maybe I can come a little closer. Well, that's it. So let's think about our citizenship, our esoteric citizenship. Always we think of building the causal body of our nation, building the egoic lotus of our nation. what have we in our nature to give to the causal body of our nation according to its nature, its soul ray especially? How can we be part of what Tuya is calling the Esoteric United Nations and help to build into the causal body of our nation qualities which it needs and which maybe we can help strengthen? Let's ponder on that for a little bit. Every day, every week, we want to give something out of our own higher nature to the soul of our country, which will feed, of course, the soul of humanity. And this is what we might really call esoteric patriotism. Whether one considers it the fatherland or the motherland doesn't make any difference. There's a gift we can give out of what we're cultivating, and when we help other people with soul cultivation, the causal body of our nation is becoming stronger, and we become true esoteric citizens of our nature, of our nation. Esoteric citizens. So we have that higher responsibility, and of course the responsibility to the soul of humanity. But if the nations of the world can develop along the indicated soul line, we can be sure that the soul of humanity as a whole will flourish. The light is growing. How beautiful it is to see places where the light is strong and possibilities for its growth elsewhere. I think we can see, it's United States, Europe, Japan looks like. Very powerful. And in eras to come, the light will increase and our globe will become a great of light. And we will contribute with our gifts to helping our planet become a sacred planet. we're really only halfway through the development of our planet, which is finally the base of the spine center of the Solar Logos. Now that humanity is waking up, so much we'll be able to do together, and those who understand something esoteric, as we are supposed to, can to become esoteric citizens, esoteric patriots of their nation and advancing the whole of humanity. Now, I'd like to play the Mantram of Unification, very beautiful rendition of this.
The sons of men are one, and I am not hurt. Let pain bring due reward of life. The soul control the outer form and life and all events, and bring to light the love which underlies the happenings of the time. Vision come, and inside let the future stand revealed. Let inner union demonstrate, and outer cleavages be gone. Let love prevail, let all men love. Let love prevail, let all men love. Let love prevail, let all men love. Let love prevail, let all men love.
And that will be the kind of earth we will have when the Christ Spirit truly has pervaded the human race, and thereby the lower kingdoms over which humanity has responsibility. And much of this, we hope, can be accomplished in the Aquarian age. It's not the end of the development by any means. We still have to pass through the Judgment Day. And that Judgment Day will see our Earth coming closer to being a sacred planet, and those who remain with the Earth, they will be on the path. and following the world teacher, whoever this world teacher may be. The Christ would have moved on as the Buddha will have moved on. Now we just want to remind you, probably you've heard a lot about it, but the new Group of World Servers Festival occurs every 7 years. And it always occurs on the same dates, the 21st to the 28th of December. So that's 2019. And the next time will be 2026. Now, various groups are having their festival celebrations in person, and our group is one of those here in Finland. So if you may be interested to join us in person for those 7 or 8 days, please do let Tuija or me know. And her address, Tuija, S. Robbins @gmail.com, and mine, infinitize8 @gmail.com. And we'll be also broadcasting and webinaring and so forth. So there's a couple of different ways to participate. I always say, look, the conference is coming up. We'll try to reach you with our broadcasts, but there's something special about being there in person, and I would say that about the new Group of World Servers festivals as well, where they may be occurring in person. This is a second ray soul planet. And we've had a long time on the third ray personality of planet Earth. One of the great crises at the present time is related to the emergence of the second ray soul of our planet. It's one of the reasons for the reappearance of the Christ and the emergence of the spiritual hierarchy of our planet. We know the hierarchy contains all the 7 rays, but essentially it's a great second ray body. We're grateful for any contribution you can make, both of your meditative presence and tangible support to keep the programs coming to you. And standing as we do here between Sweden, where we find the preparatory school of the future, and Russia, where we find the advanced school of the future, we link and blend and unite. Finland is a bridge between these schools. So we work, of course, in Finnish as well as in English. Okay, friends, thank you very much for being here with us. We have one more song calling Maitreya Buddha, and then tomorrow in the evening time we will be doing the meditation to attract financial resources for the hierarchical work, because even the Christ, we're told, has need of such resources if he's going to be able to do all he intends to do in a realistic and not fanciful manner. So many blessings from Tuija and myself and from the whole team as we continue to work esoterically upon the redemption of humanity and the planet.
love.